Formula One racing is returning to Malaysia after nearly a decade's absence, but it will only be a one-off event. Malaysia is hosting the race that Bahrain was supposed to have been held in April. It was cancelled due to the Middle East war. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim announced the news on social media, saying he had spoken with Bahrain's Crown Prince and Prime Minister, as well as the F1 chief. He said the collaboration reflects the enduring friendship and mutual trust with Bahrain. Mark the date as 2nd to 4th of October. It will be known as Formula One Gulf Air Bahrain Grand Prix in Malaysia. Top speeds and top drivers will be zooming down the track in Sepang. The circuit south of Kuala Lumpur last hosted an F1 race back in 2017 before the government terminated the contract due to falling returns. Malaysia was reportedly considered as a possible venue when the war dragged on and races in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia were cancelled. Upcoming stops in Qatar and Abu Dhabi remain in doubt. And for more, we're now joined by Hans Westerbeek. He's Professor of International Sport Business at Victoria University, joining us live. Professor, how unusual is it for Formula One to make a venue change of this scale at such short notice? Have we seen similar situations before? And what can we really learn from this?
No, I think this is unique, and certainly not with the lead-up time that Malaysia now has to get organized in almost less than 2 months. The specific circumstances obviously are also conducive to this particular move by Formula One. The conflict in the Middle East obviously has necessitated them to think outside the box. But having said that, no, this is never been seen before. To organize an event at that scale within 2 months is unique.
And from the perspective of the Formula One teams, how disruptive is a last-minute change like this? What adjustments would they have to really make?
Well, I think certainly the needs and wants of the Formula One teams have been considered in terms of choosing this particular location. There were other options. Turkey and Japan, I believe, were also in the mix. But Malaysia was very much a target and a venue that was more appropriate, also because it allows for the very close logistics connection that the teams require when they move from one circuit to the next. And given the proximity to the Singapore Grand Prix, this was a very good option. In terms of the teams and in terms of the drivers, I think they would actually value this rather than object to it, given the fact that it offers them more continuity. It is exactly what those teams actually want, rather than have increasingly big gaps between the different events. So in many ways, this was a very convenient opportunity for the whole event to be moved close to Singapore, in close connection to whatever comes next.
And apart from this logistical changes that they need to keep up, what about the circuit itself in terms of the plannings, in terms of how well it needs to be, perhaps maintained for such a very high intense kind of an F1?
Yeah, I think, again, another reason for making this decision is that Malaysia, and Sepang in particular, has held its Grade 1 license since 2017 to host other events. So in terms of the circuit being ready for racing, a few of those obstacles that other venues might have had, Malaysia doesn't have. I don't think the circuit itself is the issue. It is probably more the facilities around the actual circuit, for example, spectator facilities and hospitality facilities that need to be upgraded to the standard that Formula One requires. And I think the really biggest challenge in a 2-month turnaround, not so much for the circuit to be ready for the drivers, but to actually attract the spectators that are very much required to make an event such as this successful. Normally you would have a lead up of 12 months to get into gear for the next iteration of the event. If it is a returning event, in this case, Sepang only has 2 months from the moment of announcement to the actual event to get, for argument's sake, 100,000 spectators per day to the stadium or to the venue, rather.
Absolutely. And all of this means that there needs to be more money pumped in to get things really up to speed, get things really ready for the competition to take place. And just earlier, I mentioned that the government actually terminated the contract earlier due to falling returns. What kind of economic impact could Malaysia really expect if it really ends up hosting the race, even with only, like you mentioned, a few weeks' notice?
Yeah, look, I do think and appreciate that the government and all those who make the decision to host the event and to attract the event back to Malaysia have maybe hidden or not so hidden long-term ambitions. I think the impact of a one-off event with such a lead time is difficult. But sponsors like Petronas, for example, I'm quite sure they would be keen to bring back the Grand Prix to Malaysia for the long term, invest in it in the short term in order to make sure that those who make the decisions to bring the event back, to do that in a way that you learn from whatever the past has taught you. And that with the renewed interest in Formula One, everybody knows that Netflix shows like Drive to Survive have increasingly made this event super popular amongst target markets that previously weren't interested. And so Malaysia, in a way, can revamp the 2017 era and almost start again, but now with renewed knowledge, renewed interest, and obviously short-term investment in order to reap long-term benefits.
We're looking at dates, F1 in Malaysia will be October 2nd to 4th, and F1 in Singapore will be 9 to 11. It really comes nearly back to back. What kind of an impact might that placement have on the gates for both races? Will it be a boost, or will one race really undermine the takings for the other?
No, I think, to be honest, I think Singapore has proven in the years that they've hosted the event that it's extremely successful. Ticket sales are in high demand. They basically sell out the race every year. I don't think this decision will have any measurable impact on the popularity of the Singapore event. It's an established event, and by now, most of the corporate sales and ticket sales will have been done and dusted. People have made their decision, booked their hotels, their accommodation. It really is a separate, isolated opportunity for Sepang and for Malaysia in particular to see if indeed in the lead up and the promotion and publicity that is given to the Singapore event, lift on that a little bit for the region and to say how great will it be that we can experience this amazing event a week prior to it being hosted in Singapore. So again, I think it is an opportunity for those in Malaysia that have brought back the event and agreed to it, to use it as a test event to see if this has long-term potential.
Yeah, F1 enthusiasts have now two choices and all back-to-back to see whether, F1 in Singapore or F1 in Malaysia. But thank you so much, Professor, for all your insights. Hans Westerbeek, Professor of International Sport Business at Victoria University.